The girl on the floor. The interrogation chamber aboard Nexar Prime smelled of burnt metal and blood. Cold blue light spilled across the polished floor, while rows of armored Imperial soldiers stood motionless along the walls. Massive holographic screens floated above them, displaying biometric readings and alien symbols that pulsed with mechanical precision. At the center of the chamber knelt a human girl. Elena Ward struggled to breathe. Her white prison dress was stained crimson. Bruises darkened her arms and neck. One eye had swollen nearly shut, and dried blood clung to the side of her mouth. Every breath sent sharp pain through her ribs, but she forced herself upright anyway. The soldiers surrounding her watched silently through black reflective helmets. To them, she was weak, human, disposable. At the far end of the chamber, High Executor Vaylor descended a staircase of glowing steel. His long, dark uniform flowed behind him like liquid shadow. Silver implants traced the side of his pale skull, pulsing faintly beneath the skin. He stopped a few feet from Elena. "Again," he said calmly. "Where's the resistance fleet gathering?" Elena stared at the floor. Vaylor sighed almost theatrically. "For 17 days," he continued, "you have endured pain levels that shattered trained military officers from stronger species. Your bones have broken 12 times. Your nervous system has been burned repeatedly. Yet you continue this pointless silence." He crouched in front of her. "You are not protecting anyone anymore." Elena slowly lifted her eyes toward him. There was fear in them, but something else too. Defiance. Vaylor noticed it immediately, and his expression tightened. The Galactic Empire ruled over thousands of worlds because every species eventually learned fear. Fear was universal. Fear ended rebellions. Fear bent civilizations into obedience. But humans kept resisting. Even after Earth's outer colonies burned. Even after entire cities vanished beneath orbital bombardment. Even after millions died. The Empire had expected surrender within days of invasion. Instead, humanity fought like wounded animals trapped in a corner. And this girl embodied everything Vaylor hated about them. "She is failing to respond," one scientist muttered from the control platform. Vaylor straightened slowly, then increased the neural induction. The machine beside Elena activated with a deep mechanical hum. Metal restraints locked around her wrists and neck before she could move. A sharp pulse exploded through her body. Pain unlike fire tore across every nerve simultaneously. Elena screamed. The sound echoed through the chamber while numbers spiked wildly across the holographic displays. Another pulse hit. Her back arched violently against the restraints. Blood trickled from her nose. Still, Vaylor watched with cold patience. "Coordinates," he said. Elena trembled violently, struggling to breathe. Through blurred vision, she remembered Earth. Rain against apartment windows. Her younger brother laughing. Her mother's voice. Gone now. All of it gone. Because of them. Vaylor leaned closer. "You cannot win this." Elena swallowed blood, then whispered hoarsely, "Neither can you." The chamber fell silent. One of the soldiers shifted uneasily. Vaylor's expression hardened into something darker than anger. "Interesting," he murmured. "A species without claws, without armor, without psychic capability, yet still arrogant enough to challenge an empire." He turned toward the control platform. "Prepare the public execution broadcast." Several officers looked surprised. "Executor," one asked carefully. "She has served her purpose." Elena's head lifted weakly. Vaylor faced her again. "I wanted humanity to witness surrender," he said quietly. "Instead, they will witness extinction." The restraints released. Elena collapsed onto the glowing floor, barely conscious. Above her, enormous screens activated across the chamber. Live transmission signals spread throughout occupied systems. Millions would watch this moment. A soldier stepped forward, raising an energy rifle. For the first time, fear truly entered Elena's chest. Not of death, but of disappearing without meaning anything, without helping anyone. Vaylor spoke to the cameras. "Observe the fate of resistance." The rifle charged with a rising whine. Elena closed her eyes. Then the shot fired. White heat pierced through her chest. For one impossible second, she felt everything at once: pain, cold, weightlessness. Then nothing. Her body struck the floor motionlessly. Silence spread across the chamber. A scientist checked the readings. No cardiac activity. Another confirmed. Brain function terminated. Time of death appeared across the screens. 014 station cycle. Vaylor watched her body for several long seconds before turning away. Dispose of the remains, he ordered. 2 guards carried Elena's corpse through dim metallic corridors deep beneath Nexar Prime into a secured research vault. Machines scanned her lifeless form, while scientists prepared autopsy instruments. The vault doors sealed shut. Minutes passed, then more. The room remained silent except for the steady hum of machinery. Exactly 40 minutes later, one monitor flickered. A scientist frowned. What? A single heartbeat appeared on the screen. Weak. Impossible. Then another. Warning alarms suddenly screamed throughout the laboratory. Cardiac activity detected. That's impossible. Cells are regenerating. The corpse on the table twitched violently. Blood vessels darkened beneath Elena's skin like spreading lightning. Broken tissue repaired itself rapidly before the horrified scientist's eyes. One technician stumbled backward. No species can survive neural death. Elena's chest suddenly expanded. She inhaled sharply. Her eyes snapped open. The laboratory froze in terror. And for the first time since humanity entered the galaxy, the Empire became afraid. The thing they created. Red warning lights flashed across Laboratory Sector 12 as armored guards stormed through the corridors of Nexar Prime. Inside the sealed research vault, Elena Ward sat upright on the operating table, breathing hard. The last thing she remembered was dying. The rifle blast, the cold floor beneath her, darkness swallowing everything. But there had been something else too. A sound, not a voice, something deeper. A distant signal whispering through endless black space. Now she was alive again, and everyone around her looked terrified. Scientists backed away from the table, while scanners shrieked uncontrollably. Holographic displays flooded with biological data no one could explain. Her cells are rebuilding themselves, one technician whispered. That rate is impossible. Elena looked down slowly. The massive wound in her chest was gone. Only faint bloodstains remained across the fabric of her dress. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Every muscle felt strangely charged, as if energy surged beneath her skin. The vault doors burst open. High Executor Vaylor entered alongside heavily armed soldiers. For the first time since Elena had met him, uncertainty flickered across his face. Dr. Cayley stepped toward the Executor, visibly shaken. She was clinically dead, the alien scientist said. Total neural shutdown. We confirmed it multiple times. Vaylor's eyes never left Elena. And yet, Cayley swallowed carefully. She returned. Silence filled the room. Vaylor approached the operating table slowly, studying Elena like a dangerous animal. What are you? He asked quietly. Elena stared back at him. I'm human. Vaylor's jaw tightened. Humans do not resurrect. Looks like you were wrong. One of the guards nervously tightened his grip on his rifle. Vaylor ignored the interruption. Begin full examination, he ordered. I want every biological process documented. Before Elena could react, mechanical restraints snapped around her arms and legs once again. Panic surged through her chest. No! Machines descended from the ceiling, scanning every inch of her body with burning blue light. Cayley's monitored the data with growing disbelief. Her nervous system activity has increased by 400%, he murmured. Cellular regeneration continues even under stress. Another scientist stared at the readings. The damaged tissue is adapting faster after each injury. Vaylor turned sharply. Explain. Cayley's hesitated. It appears human biology responds to trauma by accelerating survival mechanisms. Pain strengthens the regenerative response. The room fell silent again. Even the soldiers looked disturbed. Vaylor's expression slowly changed. Not fear now. Interest. Fascinating, he whispered. Elena suddenly understood the look in his eyes. He was no longer interrogating her. He was studying her, like a weapon. Hours passed. The experiments grew worse. Extreme cold, electric shock, chemical exposure. Every test ended the same way. Elena survived. More than survived. Adapted. When toxins entered her bloodstream, her body neutralized them within minutes. When electricity surged through her nervous system, nearby machines overloaded violently, sparks exploding from control panels. At one point, the restraints holding her down literally cracked apart beneath sudden muscular spasms. The scientists began keeping their distance after that. Only Kaylee's remained near her consistently. Unlike the others, he no longer looked cruel. He looked afraid. Late into the station cycle, Kaylee's entered her containment chamber alone, carrying a small medical scanner. Elena sat against the far wall, exhausted. "Why are you helping them?" she asked weakly. Kaylee's paused. "The Empire preserves order. You torture children." The alien scientist said nothing. For a moment, silence lingered between them. Then Kaylee's lowered his voice carefully. "When you died, did you experience anything?" Elena's expression tightened. She remembered flashes of endless darkness, ancient shapes moving beneath distant stars. And that signal, calling her. "I heard something," she admitted quietly. Kaylee stared at her. "What kind of something?" "I don't know." Before he could respond, alarms suddenly erupted across the chamber. One of the scientists shouted from outside. Energy surge detected. The lights flickered violently. Elena's pulse accelerated instinctively. Pain spread through her body again. Then something snapped. A shock wave burst outward from her skin. Every monitor in the chamber exploded. The containment doors malfunctioned instantly. Soldiers stumbled backward as sparks rained from the ceiling. Elena stared at her trembling hands in horror. She had done that, without touching anything. Vaylor's furious voice echoed through the corridor. "Seal the sector," but the systems were already failing. Emergency barriers slammed down randomly throughout the laboratory complex. Smoke filled the halls. Kaylee's looked at Elena with stunned realization. The stress response triggered another adaptation. Elena turned toward the open doorway. Freedom. For the first time since her capture. She ran. Guards shouted behind her as she sprinted barefoot through flashing corridors. Pain shot through her legs, but her body ignored exhaustion completely. Blaster fire struck the walls around her. One bolt grazed her shoulder. The wound sealed almost instantly. The soldiers saw it happen, and fear spread through them. Elena kept moving. Faster, stronger, more alive than she had ever felt before. She rounded a corner and slammed into a security terminal. A holographic screen flickered beside her, displaying classified Imperial files. One title caught her eye immediately. Project Ashbourne, Human Extinction Prevention Protocol. Elena's blood ran cold. She opened the file rapidly. Ancient documents filled the screen. Warnings, predictions, records older than the Empire itself. One line stood above the rest. Humanity must never be subjected to prolonged suffering events. Adaptive escalation may become irreversible. Footsteps thundered closer behind her. Elena grabbed a nearby transmission device desperately. Static crackled across resistance frequencies. Then she spoke into the microphone. Her voice trembled, but it carried across the stars. "I'm still alive. The Empire's nightmare." The message spread across the galaxy in less than 6 minutes. 3 words. "I'm still alive." Hidden resistance networks replayed the transmission endlessly through encrypted channels. On occupied, mining worlds, exhausted workers gathered around damaged radios to hear Elena's voice. Human soldiers trapped behind enemy lines passed the recording between bunkers like sacred scripture. Hope returned, and the Galactic Empire panicked. Inside the Imperial war chamber aboard Nexar Prime, holographic maps flickered violently as reports flooded in from dozens of systems. Human resistance activity has increased by 200%. Riots reported on colony sectors 7 and 11. Several occupied species are sheltering human fugitives. High Executor Valor slammed his fist against the command platform hard enough to crack the metal surface. A single girl, he snarled. One human girl has destabilized half the outer territories. No one answered, because everyone in the room knew the truth. The Empire's greatest weapon had always been fear, and humanity was beginning to lose theirs. Far beyond Imperial territory, hidden within an asteroid field cloaked by shattered debris, the Resistance carrier Resolute Dawn drifted silently through darkness. Captain Rhys Arden stood in the crowded command deck listening to Elena's transmission replay again. The crew around him remained silent. Some looked stunned, others emotional. A young engineer finally whispered, "They killed her." Rhys nodded slowly, and she came back. For the first time in months, something dangerous appeared inside the exhausted faces surrounding him. Belief. Rhys turned toward the tactical officers. Broadcast a full rally signal to every resistance cell. One officer blinked in surprise. To all of them? All of them. Rhys looked toward the stars beyond the command deck window. The Empire made a mistake. Deep beneath the imperial capital world of Valis, Dr. Kayles descended alone into forbidden archives untouched for thousands of years. Cold dust covered enormous black walls lined with ancient data vaults. The deeper he traveled, the quieter the world became. He finally reached a sealed chamber marked with symbols older than the Empire itself. With trembling hands, Kayles activated the archive. Ancient holograms flickered to life. A recording began. Alien figures appeared on screen. Tall beings with silver eyes and elongated limbs. The architects. The civilization that existed long before modern galactic history. Kayles watched in horror as translated text appeared. Species designation, humanity. Threat classification, extinction-level adaptive organism. Kayles felt cold. Another file opened automatically. Humans display unstable evolutionary acceleration under prolonged stress conditions. Exposure to extinction events increases survivability exponentially. The next sentence made his breathing stop completely. If subjected to repeated suffering cycles, humanity may become impossible to eradicate. Kayles stared at the screen in disbelief. The Empire hadn't awakened Elena accidentally. They had triggered something ancient hidden inside humanity itself. Suddenly, the chamber lights activated. A mechanical voice echoed through the darkness. Observer recognized. Kayles spun around. A massive machine slowly emerged from the shadows. Its body resembled neither robot nor living creature. Blue light pulsed beneath layers of black alloy covered in forgotten symbols. The custodian, ancient guardian of the architects. You seek understanding, the machine said. Kayles stepped backward fearfully. What is humanity? The custodian's glowing eyes brightened. A species forged by survival. Images suddenly flooded the chamber walls. Wars, disease, starvation, disasters, cities burning beneath nuclear fire. Human history. They evolved where others perished. The custodian continued. Pain became adaptation. Loss became endurance. Death itself became temporary under sufficient biological stress. Kayles whispered shakily. The girl. The Empire accelerated her awakening. Meanwhile, Elena ran through maintenance corridors deep inside Nexar Prime, while alarms screamed across the station. Blood dripped from fresh wounds along her arms where security drones had nearly cornered her. But the injuries were already healing. She hated watching it happen, hated feeling her body change. Every painful breath felt stronger than the last. Every injury left her harder to kill. Footsteps echoed ahead. Imperial soldiers rounded the corridor, rifles raised instantly. Stop! Elena ducked as blaster fire exploded overhead. Heat scorched the walls around her. She grabbed a loose metal pipe from the floor and charged forward before the soldiers could react. The first guard collapsed immediately. The second hesitated. That hesitation cost him. Within seconds, the corridor fell silent, except for Elena's heavy breathing. She stared at the unconscious soldiers in horror. A month ago, she had been an ordinary civilian. Now armed troops feared her. Suddenly nearby, screens activated simultaneously. Vaylor's face appeared across every monitor. "You cannot escape," he said coldly. Elena glared upward. "You should have left Earth alone." Vaylor's expression darkened. "You think this makes humanity special?" "No," Elena replied quietly. "I think it makes you scared." The transmission cut instantly. Far above the station, Imperial fleets began mobilizing across the stars. Entire armadas moved under emergency command. The Empire no longer viewed humanity as a rebellious species. Humanity had become a threat, and somewhere deep inside the endless machinery of Nexar Prime, Elena finally understood the terrifying truth. The Empire had not created a monster. It had awakened one, the species that refused to die. The Imperial fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a wall of black steel. Thousands of warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, stretching across the darkness between planets. Their engines glowed crimson against the stars while enormous dreadnoughts rotated slowly into firing position above Mars. Earth stood directly behind the defense line. Blue, fragile, human. Inside the command deck of the Resistance carrier Resolute Dawn, silence filled the room as officers stared at the tactical displays. The Empire outnumbered them 10-1. Captain Rhys Arden folded his arms behind his back. "Status." A technician swallowed nervously. "Every available human vessel has answered the call." Holograms expanded across the deck. Not just warships, mining rigs, cargo haulers, civilian transports, damaged patrol craft held together by welded scrap metal. Anything capable of moving through space had come to defend Earth. Rhys stared quietly at the screen. "They really came." One officer gave a grim smile. "We're humans, sir." Across the fleet, civilian volunteers loaded ammunition beside exhausted soldiers. Parents hugged children before returning to battle stations. Pilots with broken arms climbed into cockpits anyway. Fear existed, but surrender did not. Far away aboard the Imperial flagship Dominion ascended. High Executor Vaylor watched the human fleet with visible disgust. "They still resist," one commander muttered. Vaylor's eyes narrowed coldly, then erased them. Thousands of Imperial weapons charged simultaneously. Before the order could fire, alarms erupted across the bridge. Unknown transmission entering all channels. Static crackled through every ship in the system. Then Elena appeared on screen. Bruised, exhausted, alive. She stood inside a damaged Imperial communications chamber somewhere deep within enemy territory. "You wanted the galaxy to fear you," she said quietly. Her voice spread across every frequency. "But all you taught humanity was how much we had to lose." Vaylor's expression twisted with fury. "Locate her immediately." The battle began seconds later. The stars themselves seemed to ignite. Imperial cannons tore through human front lines while Resistance fighters surged forward through explosions and debris. Entire ships vanished in firestorms, but human pilots kept attacking even as their vessels burned apart around them. An old mining cruiser rammed directly into an Imperial destroyer. Both ships exploded together. Human fighters dove through impossible gaps in enemy formations, striking faster than Imperial calculations predicted. Alien commanders panicked as wounded human soldiers continued fighting long after severe injuries should have stopped them. The Empire had spent centuries conquering species that feared death. Humanity feared extinction more. Deep beneath the battle, Elena fought through the corridors of the Dominion Ascendant toward the central command chamber. Every step hurt. Fresh burns covered her arms. Blood dripped from cuts along her face. And every injury healed moments later. She could feel the changes spreading deeper now. Her body adapting constantly, evolving. It terrified her. At the end of the corridor, massive doors opened slowly. Vaylor waited inside. Rows of guards surrounded him, weapons raised instantly. "Elena Ward," he said calmly. "The Empire dies because one girl refused obedience." Elena stepped forward. "No," she answered. "It dies because you thought suffering makes people weak." Vaylor signaled the guards. Blaster fire erupted across the chamber. Pain exploded through Elena's body as shots tore into her side and shoulder. She collapsed briefly, then stood again. The wounds closed before their eyes. Several guards backed away in horror. Valor stared at her like he was witnessing a nightmare. "What are you?" he whispered. Elena's breathing shook. For a moment, she remembered the darkness she had seen after death. The distant signal, the ancient force waiting beneath the stars. It still called to her, offering power, immortality, something beyond human. But now she finally understood the truth. Humanity's strength was never invincibility. It was persistence, the ability to keep going despite pain, despite fear, despite death itself. Elena slowly looked at Valor. "I'm just human." Then she charged forward. The fight was brutal and fast. Valor's cybernetic implants enhanced his speed beyond normal limits. But Elena adapted to every movement almost instantly. The longer the battle continued, the stronger her body responded. Finally, she slammed him against the central command platform hard enough to crack the metal beneath him. Valor stared upward, defeated. "You should kill me," he rasped. Elena raised a weapon, then stopped. Slowly, she lowered it. The entire chamber fell silent. Valor looked confused. After everything the Empire had done, mercy made no sense to him. Elena stepped back. "That's why humanity wins," she said softly. "Because we know when not to become monsters." Outside the flagship, Imperial formations collapsed. One surrender signal became dozens, then hundreds. Within hours, the battle for Earth ended. Months later, the Galactic Empire fractured into chaos as occupied worlds rebelled across the galaxy. Humanity survived, not because they were the strongest species, not because they could not die, but because they refused to stay broken. On Earth, sunlight spilled across green hills outside a rebuilt refugee settlement. Elena stood quietly watching the sunrise while workers rebuilt homes behind her. A small child approached carefully. "Is it true?" the girl asked. Elena smiled faintly. "What? That you died?" For a moment, Elena looked toward the bright horizon. Then she nodded once. "Yeah," she said softly. The child blinked. "But you came back." Elena's smile widened just a little. "Humans are stubborn like that.